Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series number 84 Ironhide. So this is Ironhide as we saw him in those first 3 minutes of that 2018 Bumblebee movie. So as we always do, let's go ahead and bring in that packaging and take a look at that. And you've got Bumblebee right up top. And you've got that nice Ironhide CGI artwork. He looks fantastic there. He is number 84, Studio Series Ironhide. Over here on this side, you have that artwork again. On the back, you have your product shots and some verbiage. So it is big screen inspired. It is Cybertron falls, and Ironhide and the Autobots take on the Decepticons in a final stand. And a backdrop is included. Always fantastic. And then down here you have your warnings and you have your sad baby. Baby's sad because it's the final stand and the Decepticons win. So, what a bummer. Anyway, there's number 84. There's a close-up of his face. He is a deluxe class. Bumblebee up top. Down low, you've got additional information. So that is it for the packaging. Let's go ahead and see what came inside that box. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box. And we'll start over here with your little sheet of warnings. And you get your sheet of instructions. And that leaves you with his singular accessory, which is that rifle. Now, this is the same rifle that you get with the Studio Series Bumblebee Ratchet. And it is simply just molded in a different color. So the one for Ratchet is a little more of a gray. But this is a nice weapon. It is a nice accessory, but it is just a remold of what we've seen in the past. So a lot of nice sculpt work in there. No paint. And unfortunately, again, just like Ratchet's, it is not effects compatible. So it's got a big old hole in the front right there, but blast effects don't fit. So yeah, that's a huge disappointment. So I wasn't real happy when I saw this with Ratchet, and I'm even less happy seeing it with Ironhide. So, but there you go. Nonetheless, it is a nice looking rifle. All right, so that leaves us with just what you see here. So we will talk about the display base here real quick. So you do get these with all the Studio Series figures, as I've stated in previous reviews. Although I appreciate it, I don't have room, so I'll be taking this display base and I'll be folding it back up, putting it in the box, and putting the box in storage. But for those of you who have room, they are a nice display piece. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll bring Ironhide in and take a nice close look at him and see what he has to offer. So before we bring Ironhide in here to take a look at his details, it's worth noting that this is simply just a remold of that Studio Series Ratchet from the Bumblebee movie. Really the only thing that's changed here is that head sculpt. So all the other geometry is exactly the same. The only thing different is going to be that head and the molded and painted colors. Still a good looking mold. I still like it, but this is just a copy and paste job here. So let's go ahead and bring him in. We'll take a look, and just like Ratchet, we'll start off. I really hope that's coming through on camera because I really like the light piping, what they've done here on both of those figures. It's just very efficient. It works very nicely, and it just brings the figure to life. So that is a nice head sculpt. And it is, if you look closely, it's even a Ratchet face. The only difference here is Ironhide has his crest or his mohawk, whereas Ratchet has his horns. But the actual face sculpt is the same between the two figures. And you've got some detail in there, which is always fun to look at. It keeps him nice and busy. And then you've got that nice blue translucent plastic there and the Autobot symbol. Silver up under here. All of this just came out looking great on both figures, but I really do like the paint job here on Ironhide. And coming down to the crotch, everything looks pretty good there. Just a matte plastic. Doesn't quite match what they've got painted down here, but it's not the worst. And then coming down to those legs, open those legs up, just like Ratchet. Not really bad as far as hollow areas go on the inside here, but you do have a little bit. And then, of course, you got his real wheels on the inside and the faux wheels on the outside. And then coming down to those legs, some paint applications here would have gone a long way. They did a good job of getting paint applications everywhere on him except for the lower body. The feet look great, but just these lower shins and the upper thighs could have benefited. And then you got those feet there, good sculpt work in there. And then if you look at it here on the side, those paint details, it just goes a long way. It really adds something to the figure. And then you have those faux wheels right there, outer leg, And then coming up here, he fills out pretty good. Now he is very hollow on the inside, but everything closes up, so he looks nice and solid. Good amount of detail right in here. Looking up underneath, really the only hollow area you've got is just where those fists fold in, but good detail there as well. And then he's got those big old square shoulders that are nicely painted. Coming around to the back, he looks pretty good from the back as well. If I can get him straightened out there, other than those hollow areas in his calves. So he looks big, bulky, strong, just really an overall stocky fellow, and that's a good look. Only areas down here, those are a little bit hollow, but they're not the worst, and you're typically not going to see him from the back anyway. So yeah, really, for the most part, not too bad at all. Now, as far as articulation goes, it is the exact same thing as Ratchet. So heads on a ball joint, you can, do what you want to do there, I guess. A little bit of up, a little bit down, side to side, and around. Over here at the shoulders, up that far, all the way around, and bicep rotation, and just a single bend at the elbow. So you get about 90 degrees there. And no wrist rotation, but you do get wrist swivel in because of that transformation, so you can take advantage of that if you need to. Down here at the waist, you do get waist rotation, and then down here at the hips, you can get a nice wide split, and kicking forward that far, kicking backward that far, and then for that knee bend, so you got just over 90 at that knee. And then coming down here to the feet, you can bring those feet back. Well, they tuck all the way in, so bring them back as far as you want, I suppose. And then bring them forward that far. And then as far as your ankle tilt goes, you get about that much ankle tilt. So it would have been nice to have a little bit more ankle tilt, but what you have there would definitely work. All right, so details, he looks good. Articulation, he's got the articulation where it counts, and he's got a good amount of stability there. So now that we've done all that, let's go ahead and just bring in his accessory. I'm not going to do a separate segment for this because, well, frankly, there's not much to talk about. You plug the rifle in, and then he doesn't have anything as far as blast effects goes, except for down here at the bottoms of his feet. And that's really it. He's got a 3mm port back here that you can take advantage of. But I did go over all of the blast effect and put him on a flight stand and everything in the Ratchet review. So go check the Ratchet review out. But as far as accessories here, really all we're going to do is we're going to plug that in. And there you go. He's got a gun. Boom. All right, so that's pretty much what you can do there. You can store it on the back. I do like the storage between Ratchet and Ironhide. This is nice, eloquent storage in his bot mode. So you've got a peg that sticks out there, and you plug it in right... Oop, didn't get it all the way in. You plug it in right there, and then you are all set. And it looks good. So as he's walking, he's got his gun slung over his back, looking all kinds of tough. All right, so now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get him converted into his Cybertronian Alt Mode, and we'll take a look at him from there. Here we see Ironhide in his Cybertronian Alt Mode, and just like I said with Ratchet, this is a cool little alt mode. I like it, and I love how compact they get in this mode. I mean, it is deceptively small when you look at compared to when you look at the robot mode. So I do very much like that, and you can see when he comes together here, he just looks really good. But I do have a few gripes, so let's go ahead and discuss those gripes. And the first one is going to be, number one, those mushroom pegs. Don't like them on Ratchet, don't like them on anything, don't like them on Ironhide. They gotta go, especially when they don't match. I mean, come on, one's red, one's gray. Why are you doing that to us? Pick a color, man. Just make them black. I know that it's the molded color of the plastic, but that just feels lazy. And if you're going to do that, paint the inner wheels to match the mushroom pegs. For our first alt mode comparison, here we see that Studio Series Ironhide next to my G1 Outback. Unfortunately, I do not have a G1 Ironhide in my collection, so Outback has graciously volunteered to be that G1 representation for us, so there you go. Moving right along to our next comparison, this is the Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise Ironhide, so you can see how those two compare. Next up is the Studio Series Ironhide figure from the Bayverse films, so you can see how those two guys look together. Next up is the Studio Series Brawn from the Bumblebee movie. Here we see Ironhide with his wavemate. This is the Studio Series RC, as we saw her from the Bumblebee movie. And for our final alt mode comparison, here we see a couple of twins. These guys are, of course, mold mates. There is nothing different between the two other than the color of the molded plastic and the color of the paint in that head sculpt. So this is the Studio Series Ironhide on the left, and of course the Studio Series Ratchet on the right. And yeah, these guys are pretty cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of different angles on these guys. And there you've got that 3/4 view from the back. And we'll put them head to head. And then we'll go back to back. All right, so there you go. That'll do it for Ironhide and Ratchet there. All right, that's it for the alt mode comparisons. Let's get him back into his bot mode and we'll do some comparisons there. For our first bot mode comparison, here we see the Studio Series Ironhide next to my G1 Outback. Next up, here we have two Ironhides. This is the War for Cybertron Earthrise Ironhide. For our next comparison, this is the Studio Series number 14 Ironhide from the Bayverse films. Here we see Ironhide next to one of his buddies. This is the Studio Series Brawn from the Bumblebee movie. For our next comparison, here we see the Studio Series Ironhide next to his wavemate, the Studio Series RC from the Bumblebee movie. And for our final individual bot mode comparison, here we see the Studio Series Ironhide next to his mold mate, the Studio Series Ratchet. So let's go ahead and see those guys from a couple of different angles. And finally, here's Ironhide with a sampling of some other Studio Series figures from that Bumblebee movie line. Just thought I'd throw this in for a little bit of fun. Hope you enjoy. Alright, that's it for the comparisons. Let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. Alright everybody, so let's go ahead and do some final thoughts on the Studio Series Ironhide. This isn't going to be as long as my typical segments. My microphone's giving me some trouble here, so I'm going to keep this brief. Overall, I would say that this is a pretty good figure, and if you like Ratchet, you're going to like Ironhide, and you know what you're getting. But let's go ahead and get into those numbers a little bit, and we'll start with the aesthetics, the overall look of the figure. I think that this mold looks better as an Ironhide than it does as a Ratchet. I think it works pretty well. This color scheme is definitely Ironhide through and through. I'm not going to give him any extra points just for that, though. I think the overall look here is good. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10, just like what I gave Ratchet. Moving on to the articulation, same mold, same articulation, nothing different from Ratchet. So the articulation here is going to match up to what I gave him as well. And I'll say the same thing that I did for Ratchet. I would have liked to have had more motion out of those feet. You're still going to be able to get him into some nice dynamic poses, but a little bit more motion in those feet, ankle tilt, that kind of stuff would have been really helpful. So articulation, I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. Moving on to the accessories. This is where he differs a little bit from the Ratchet figure. Not because their accessories are different, but because we've seen it before. So yeah, it's a big gun. Yeah, he looks really cool holding it. However, it's not blast effect compatible. It does not have any paint on it. And it's the same gun we got with Ratchet. I'm not going to reward Hasbro for giving us the exact same thing. So I'm giving him a 5 out of 10 for the accessories. Moving on to quality, I will say that the quality on this figure is a little better than the Ratchet figure. The Ratchet figure had some really loose joints in places, which made it kind of difficult to pose him or to keep him standing up. Ironhide here, all of his joints are tighter. They're not as tight as they could be. They're not ideal, but they are definitely tighter. So he came with everything he was supposed to come with, that one big gun. The molding looks good, sculpt work looks good, paint applications I think are a little better done than what we had with Ratchet as well, and his joints are tighter. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 on overall quality. So taking us to our last bullet, which is overall value. I think for this design, for this mold, I think the value is there. The value is there even more so if you can find him at a good competitive price. So as I stated in the Studio Series RC review, make a long story as short as possible here, I found this Ironhide on a shelf in Target in North America, along with the RC and with the Studio Series 86 junk heap that I'll be putting out here shortly. But I found him on the shelf, and I took the 3 of those figures up to the register, tried to ring them up. They wouldn't ring up. The manager came over, tried to look them up, couldn't find them. She ended up selling them to me for $19 US. So $19 US each, I should point out. So I picked this guy up at a Target in North America for $19 US. I think that's a pretty good price. I didn't have any issues with that whatsoever. So I think the value is there for that price point. So I'm giving him a 9 out of 10 for overall value. So that brings us to our grand total. Out of a possible 50 points, the Studio Series Ironhide gets 39 out of 50, which puts him at 78%. So I'm not going to recommend the figure per se, but I am going to say if you like Ratchet and you know what you're getting into, then I think that this will be a good figure for you to pick up. I think you can live without this figure, but I do think that if you get him, you're going to enjoy him. So with all that being said, that's going to wrap the review up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you got some good information. I hope you're entertained. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe, and leave some comments and let us know what you think of the channel. And until we see you guys in the next review, take care.